My phone buzzed while I was standing inside the walk-in cooler, counting dessert trays. I almost ignored it. It was the Friday before spring break, the lunch rush was only 20 minutes away, and one of my prep cooks had called in sick. I had lemon bars setting on the top rack, 4 cheesecakes cooling, and 6 hotel pans of lasagna that still needed to be labeled before the staff started asking me where everything belonged. Then I saw my brother's name, Derek. I wiped my hands on my apron and opened the message. "Your kids aren't invited. This is a real family trip." That was it. No hello, no explanation, no "can we talk," just that. For a second I honestly thought I had read it wrong. My brain tried to make it sound less cruel. Maybe he meant some side excursion. Maybe he was talking about the cousins-only boat ride. Maybe the adults were going first and the kids would join later. Then another message came through. "Mom thinks it'll be less complicated this way. Don't make a scene at the airport." I stared at the screen until the words started to blur. Not invited, my kids, on the trip I had booked. The trip I had paid for, all 11 tickets. I was still holding my phone when my daughter Emily appeared in the cooler doorway, carrying a stack of paper place cards for the bakery case. She was 13 and far too observant for her own good. She looked at my face, then at the phone, and immediately stopped. "What happened?" I swallowed. "Nothing you need to worry about right this second." It was a lie, and she knew it. Emily had my eyes and my quiet habit of noticing everything in a room before stepping into it. She also had the unfortunate ability to hear what people meant, even when they tried to hide it. My son Noah came rushing in right behind her, all elbows, sneakers, and 12-year-old energy. "Mom," Carlos said, "can I have one of the broken cannoli shells?" He stopped when he saw me. "Why do you look like that?" I locked my phone and placed it face down on the stainless steel table. "Go wash up," I said, "both of you." Emily didn't move. "Was that Uncle Derek?" I nodded once. "What did he say?" I should have waited. I should have bought myself some time. I should have protected them for another hour, but I had spent too many years cleaning up the truth after my family made a mess of it, so I told them. "He said you two aren't invited on the trip." Noah blinked as if he hadn't heard me correctly. "The Orlando trip, yes. The one with Grandma and Grandpa, yes. The one you already booked, yes." Emily's expression changed first. It was subtle. That was what hurt the most. There were no tears, no yelling, just that tiny closing off I had seen too many times around my family. Her shoulders pulled inward, her mouth tightened, her eyes dropped toward the floor. Noah looked confused before the hurt finally showed. "Why?" I didn't answer quickly enough. Emily answered for me. "Because we're not real family, apparently." She said it so flatly, like she was commenting on the weather. My throat tightened. "Who said that to you?" She shrugged. "Nobody exactly." That meant everybody in little pieces. A pause that lasted too long at Christmas. An envelope for every cousin, but not for her. Grandma introducing Derek's stepson to church friends as her oldest grandson while somehow skipping over Noah, who was standing right there with frosting on his face and a birthday hat in his hand. I should have known. God, I should have known. I was 42 years old. I owned a restaurant that people in town actually liked. I could produce contracts, liquor invoices, payroll problems, and difficult customers without even blinking. But around my parents, I somehow became that same old version of myself who just wanted one nice holiday, one easy dinner, one year where nobody made my children feel like outsiders. I picked up my phone again and replied to Derek with 2 words, "Got it." Then I called the airline. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry on the phone. I walked into my office, closed the door, sat down in the old wooden chair I had been meaning to replace, and pulled up the reservation number from my email. The customer service agent sounded polite and tired. Her name was Marisol. "How can I help you today, Ms. Baker?" "I need to modify a family reservation," I said. She asked for the confirmation code. I gave it to her. I heard her typing. "All right," she said. "I see 11 passengers on a round-trip booking from Charlotte to Orlando for Monday morning." "That's right. What changes would you like to make?" I looked through the office window toward the kitchen. Emily was stacking napkins because she needed something to do with her hands. Noah was pretending to help Carlos portion tiramisu, but I could tell he was listening for every sound coming from my office. I lowered my voice. "I need to cancel every seat except mine and my 2 children's." There was a pause. "Just to confirm," she said carefully, "you want to keep 3 seats under Baker, Emily, and Baker, Noah. And cancel the remaining 8 passengers." "Yes." "Are you the original purchaser on the booking?" "I am." "Will you also be changing the hotel package attached to this reservation?" There it was, the Hotel. 3 rooms at a family resort near the park, all paid for by me 6 weeks earlier. I had booked them after my mother sighed over the phone and said, "You know your father's pension doesn't stretch like it used to, and Derek has the boys' baseball fees and Lisa's between jobs again. You're doing so well, honey, it would mean a lot to the family." The family, that phrase always seemed to mean everybody except us whenever it really mattered. "Yes," I said. "I need to make an adjustment too, keep one room and cancel the other 2, more typing followed. "All right, I can process that. Because of the fare class, some of the money will come back as travel credit, while part of it will be refunded to the original card. The hotel rooms will have 1 cancellation fee per room." "Would you like me to continue?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." While she worked, I opened my banking app. I watched the card balance as if I were waiting for a storm to pass. My hands were steady, which surprised me. Maybe it was because the decision itself wasn't difficult. The difficult part had been everything that came before it, the years of swallowing my feelings. The years of being useful, the years of trying to buy warmth from people who treated my children like they were some kind of inconvenience. Marisol came back on the line. "The changes are complete. You'll receive updated emails shortly. Thank you. Would you like me to review the seat assignments for the remaining 3 passengers?" "Yes," I said, "put us together. Window seats if possible." She handled it. I thanked her again and ended the call. That was it. No speech, no threat, no angry group text, just done. I sat there for maybe 10 seconds, staring at my reflection in the black computer screen. Then I stood up, opened the office door, and went back to work because lunch wasn't going to cook itself. That was the thing nobody in my family ever seemed to understand about me. They thought that because I was the person who kept things running, I would keep running for them too. They confused competence with unlimited forgiveness. They were wrong. My name was Hannah Baker. I lived in Asheville, North Carolina. I owned a neighborhood restaurant and bakery called Baker's Table. It had started as a small dessert counter in a rented corner space and had grown into a full restaurant over 8 very difficult years. I was divorced. My ex-husband lived in Tennessee and mostly appeared through late birthday gifts and inconsistent child support. Emily was my daughter by birth. Noah came into my life when he was 5 after I married his father. That marriage didn't last, but Noah did. His dad slowly disappeared, and I was the one doing the school pickups, filling inhaler prescriptions, helping with science fair projects, having the difficult conversations, and dealing with endless laundry. Somewhere along the way, the paperwork finally caught up with the love, and Noah became mine in every way that mattered. My parents never directly said they disapproved. Honestly, that might have been easier. Instead, they did it in that neat, deniable way people call manners when they don't want to call it cruelty. Emily received birthday checks for $50 inside cards covered with hearts. Noah usually got something bought at the last minute, clearance puzzles or a pair of socks that still had the plastic fasteners attached. At Thanksgiving, my mother would say, "Let's do just blood family in this photo first." Then she would act surprised when I took both kids and stepped out too. At Easter, there were personalized baskets for Derek's boys and Lisa's little girl, while one generic basket sat on the counter for the children, as if my kids were a single group and names cost extra. 2 Christmases earlier, my father handed Derek's oldest son a set of engraved fishing lures and said, "These are for the Baker men." Noah stood beside me holding a little tin robot he had received from the dollar store gift exchange. He smiled like he didn't care. I told myself they were old-fashioned, traditional, awkward, not intentionally cruel. I told myself love could look different from one person to another. I told myself that if I kept showing up, my kids would at least know I had tried. What I was really doing was teaching them to expect less, and underneath all of that was another pattern: money. My parents had never really learned how to live within their means, not because they were poor, they weren't, they were careless. My father loved projects, boats, then RVs, then a garage expansion, then a retirement cabin partnership that disappeared after 11 months and took $20,000 with it. My mother cared about appearances. Monogram towels, expensive church fundraisers, catered anniversary parties for people who still kept plastic on their dining room chairs. Derek was worse in a different way. He acted like every emergency that happened to him was somehow unfair and therefore somebody else should pay for it. Baseball fees, transmission problems, summer camp deposits. "Just until Friday, can you float me? You know I'd do it for you," he wouldn't have. Lisa, my younger sister, had the softest voice in the family and somehow the greatest talent for spending someone else's money. She rarely asked me directly. Instead, she let Mom do the asking and then sent me grateful voice messages about how difficult things had been. Over the past 5 years, I had paid $1,800 for my parents' HVAC repair. I covered another $2,300 when Derek was between contracts, even though he somehow still managed to take his boys to Gatlinburg. I arranged weekly grocery deliveries for my mother after her knee surgery, even long after she was driving again. I paid for 2 semesters of community college textbooks for Lisa, which somehow became 1 semester and then, maybe next year. I bought plane tickets for 3 different family reunions, even though my kids were still treated like plus ones. And now there was this trip, 11 tickets, 3 hotel rooms, park passes that I hadn't activated yet but absolutely intended to. The whole thing had come to a little over $6,400 before meals. I knew the exact number because I had stared at it when I pressed the payment button and heard my mother say, "Your generosity is such a blessing." Blessing. That word always seemed to appear right before they asked me for something. By 2:00, the lunch rush had finally died down. The kitchen had finally gone from complete chaos to a messy quiet. I was frosting a coconut cake when my phone started vibrating across the counter. Mom, I let it ring, then Derek, then Mom again, then Lisa. A few seconds later, the family group chat lit up 3 times in a row. Emily glanced over at me. "You going to answer?" "Not yet." Noah was sitting on an overturned flour bucket, eating staff fries and pretending he wasn't paying attention. "Did they already find out?" "Yes." "Good." I almost laughed, but instead I kept smoothing the frosting over the cake. At 4:00, when we closed between lunch and dinner, I finally opened the messages. "Mom, there has to be some mistake with the airline. Call me immediately." "Derek, what the hell did you do?" "Derek, we're at the airport hotel checking in and nothing is showing except your names." "Lisa, Hannah, please tell me you didn't do this in front of Ella. She's crying." Then Mom again. "Mom, this is humiliating." That message sat on my screen like a perfect little piece of evidence. Humiliating, not cruel, not unfair, not wrong, humiliating. Because apparently the only thing they truly recognized as a problem was being embarrassed in front of other people. I typed one response into the family group. "You told me my kids weren't invited." I adjusted the reservation to match. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Derek called. I answered not because I wanted to hear him, but because I was tired of letting him use his volume as a weapon from a distance. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he snapped. I leaned against the stainless steel counter. That's an interesting opening line from the person who texted me that my children weren't real family. That's not what I said. I pulled up the message and read his exact words back to him. Silence, then he said, "You know what I meant." "No, Derek, explain it to me." He let out a frustrated breath. I could hear the airport noise behind him, rolling suitcases, overhead announcements, and some child whining about wanting a snack. "Mom said the trip was for immediate family. My children are my immediate family. You know what I'm saying?" "Yes," I said quietly. "I do. You've embarrassed all of us." I looked through the restaurant window. Emily was wiping down the dessert case with slow, careful circles, clearly still angry. Noah was drawing something on a paper napkin. "No," I said, "you embarrassed yourselves. I just stopped paying for it." His voice dropped. "Dad is furious. That's not a consequence I'm afraid of anymore. You can't just strand people like this." I didn't strand anyone. "I canceled tickets I paid for after you told me not to bring my children." That was Mom talking. Derek sent the message, and now Dad was angry because I had actually listened. Derek swore under his breath before trying another tactic. "Ella's upset." There it was, someone else's tears being handed to me like a bill I was supposed to pay with my guilt. I kept my voice calm, then maybe explained to her why excluding children hurts. He hung up. I stood there for a moment with my phone silent in my hand. And then I realized something I hadn't expected. I didn't feel guilty, not even a little, not in those soft, familiar places where guilt usually found a way in. I felt clear. That night after dinner service, I took Emily and Noah home. At 10:30, we sat around our kitchen table eating grilled cheese because none of us had really been hungry earlier. The house was quiet in that strange way it gets after a storm hasn't completely passed, but has moved a few streets away. Emily dipped the crust of her sandwich into her tomato soup. "Finally," she said. "Did Grandma really tell him to say that?" Yes, you know that for sure. I know your uncle doesn't usually think for himself when doing the right thing might cost him something. Noah chewed. Slowly. Swallowed and looked at me. Were they really all going to go without us? Yes, he nodded slowly like he was filing away a fact about weather or dog breeds. Then he asked the question that hurt the most because it was so simple. Were they going to tell us before we got there? I looked at him. That was the part I hadn't allowed myself to imagine too clearly, us arriving at the airport, the cousins wearing matching shirts, Grandma carrying her pill organizer in her tote bag. Derek making jokes, Lisa worrying about sunscreen she probably wouldn't use until we reached Florida. And then my children finding out under fluorescent airport lights and departure boards that there was no place for them on a trip their own mother had paid for, or worse. What if we had all flown down anyway, only for my kids to be left behind at the hotel while everyone else went to the parks for family day? Maybe not, I said honestly. Maybe they thought I'd just go along with it. Emily gave a dry little laugh. It sounded much older than 13. They usually do think that. I turned toward her. How long have you felt that way? She carefully placed her spoon down. Mom, that one word was enough of an answer. Noah still believed in them more, or maybe he just hoped more openly. Do Grandpa and Grandma hate me? The entire room went quiet. I moved my chair closer to him. No, listen to me, their problem is not you. It has never been you, but they don't like me as much. It wasn't really a question, I could have lied. Parents do that sometimes because the truth feels too heavy for their children. But Noah had already been carrying enough without knowing why. They've been wrong about what family means, I told him. That's their failure, not yours. He looked down at his sandwich. Emily reached over and gently nudged his elbow. You're more fun than all of them anyway. That finally pulled a small smile from him. Then Emily looked at me. What happens now? I thought about the missed calls, the calls that would come tomorrow, the church lady gossip chain that was probably already starting, my mother's wounded voice, Derek's anger. Lisa's quiet accusations. I thought about Easter, summer birthdays, holidays, and all the little family traditions people use to keep pulling you back into the same old place. Then I remembered the airline confirmation sitting in my inbox. 3 seats, 1 room, my card had already been partially refunded. There was still enough left from the trip to do something else. We're still going, I said. Both kids looked up. To Orlando? Noah asked. Yes, just us. Emily blinked. Seriously, I nodded. Their expressions changed right in front of me. The hurt didn't disappear, but now it had somewhere else to go, somewhere brighter, somewhere that belonged to us. Noah sat up straighter. Can we still go to the dinosaur place? Yes, Emily spoke up, and we don't have to wait for Uncle Derek's boys to decide everything. No, Noah grinned. Can we eat breakfast for dinner at the hotel? Yes, Emily smiled, small but genuine. Then I'm in. That should have been the end of the night, it wasn't. At 6:15 the next morning, someone pounded on my front door hard enough to rattle the glass panes. I was already awake, tying my hair back before heading to the bakery. Emily came halfway down the stairs in her socks. Noah opened his bedroom door. I looked through the side window. My parents, of course. My mother was wearing her church cardigan and that wounded expression she always seemed to have ready. My father stood stiffly beside her, looking like anger itself had put on a pair of loafers. I opened the door just enough to step onto the porch, then pulled it mostly closed behind me. My father started immediately. You have lost your mind. Good morning to you too, my mother cut in. Can we not do this on the porch? We can do it right here. Her mouth tightened. She hated scenes unless she was the one directing them. Hannah, she said, you have made a humiliating, awful decision that has hurt the entire family. No, I said. I corrected a booking after my children were excluded. My father took one step closer. You do not get to punish everyone because you're being oversensitive. That old word, oversensitive. Their favorite solvent, it was how they dissolved any pain they didn't want to take responsibility for. I folded my arms. You told Derek my kids weren't invited. My mother gave me the look she had perfected when I was 10 and crying over something she had definitely done on purpose. You are twisting it. We said this trip was for the core family. I stared at her. I am your daughter. A beat passed. My father said, things are different after divorce and remarriage and all the rest of it. Don't make me spell it out. There it was, not elegant anymore, just ugly. All the rest of it, meaning Noah, meaning the child I had raised for 7 years. Meaning the child who called me mom before any judge ever put a stamp on it. My stomach went cold in a clean, hard way. You won't need to spell anything out again, I said. Because we're done having this conversation. Mom changed tactics immediately. You know the boys are devastated. I almost admired how quickly she switched gears, never apologized, just reroute. The boys, I said, are not more important than my children. Nobody said they were. You've shown it for years. She looked offended by the word shown, as if evidence itself were rude. My father crossed his arms. We counted on this trip. Yes, I said, that has been the pattern. His face darkened. I am your father, and I am not your bank. The words came out so calmly that even I was surprised. No shaking voice, no cracked edge, just true. Something shifted in his expression then. He wasn't looking at a dramatic daughter anymore. He was looking at a closed door. My mother reached for softness again. Sweetheart, families say things. Families have misunderstandings. You don't destroy a vacation over one badly worded text. It wasn't one text. What do you mean? I looked past them at their car in my driveway. At the little pink air freshener hanging from the mirror. The same one my mother always used because she thought it made the car smell clean. Then I looked back at her. I mean the Christmas stockings with names on them except Noah's. Her face changed just for a flicker. I mean the Easter basket labeled boys because apparently his name didn't fit. Silence. I mean the time you introduced Derek's sons as your grandsons and called Noah Hannah's boy like he was some neighbor's kid. Mom inhaled. I mean the school play you skipped for him but drove 2 hours for when it was Wyatt's piano recital. Dad said. That's not fair. I mean the birthday card with $20 in it for Emily and the gas station puzzle for Noah that was still wrapped in the discount bin packaging. Hannah, Mom whispered. You keep lists? No, I said. My children do. That landed. For the first time my mother looked genuinely unsteady. Behind the door I heard movement. Emily probably listening. Good. Let them know I wasn't going to smooth this over anymore. Dad tried one last push. So what? This is it. You're cutting off your own parents over hurt feelings. I opened the door wider so my voice would carry inside. I'm ending financial support to people who exclude my children. That includes trips, tickets, loans, transfers, emergency bailouts, and any charges on the family card I'm still paying down. Effective now. My father stared at me. You can't talk to us that way. I met his eyes. I did. Mom's face folded in on itself, not with remorse but with wounded pride. You're being vindictive. No. I'm being finished. Then I stepped back inside and shut the door. I locked it. Through the glass, I watched them stand there for another moment. My mother spoke first, sharp and clipped. My father threw one hand into the air, then they got back into the car and drove away. I turned around. Emily was standing on the stairs in yesterday's sweatshirt. Noah was peeking from the hallway. Emily asked, "Did you mean it?" "Yes, everything, yes," Noah said. "Even the card?" I nodded. There had been one more piece to the system. A family credit card for shared travel and emergencies, opened 3 years earlier because my parents' rewards were much better if someone with good credit applied. I was that someone. They used it. I paid it down, not always all at once and not always without complaining, but enough to keep everybody moving. I grabbed my laptop from the kitchen counter, logged in and sat down where both kids could see. "Come here," I said. They stood on either side of me. I clicked through the account dashboard. Current balance, recent charges, authorized users, my father, my mother, Derek, Lisa. I selected each name one by one. Remove authorized user. Confirm. Remove authorized user. Confirm. Remove authorized user. Lisa's last because somehow she would take it the most personally while pretending she was the least involved. Confirmed. Then I called the number on the back of the card and requested replacement cards issued only in my name. The representative asked whether there had been any unauthorized use. I said no. Just unauthorized assumptions. Emily laughed then, a short, surprised laugh, and somehow I felt the awful knot inside me finally start to loosen. After I ended the call, I showed them the screen. Done, Noah nodded. That was kind of cool. It was overdue. By 10:00 that morning, the fallout had already begun. Derek sent 6 texts in a row. Dad says the card got declined at the gas station. Mom's prescription pickup was rejected. You need to fix this right now. This is insane. You're really doing this over one issue. Call me? I didn't. Lisa sent a much longer message. I understand you're hurt, but punishing everyone financially isn't healthy. Family shouldn't be transactional. Ella had nothing to do with this, and now we're all suffering because you want to make a point. That one almost made me laugh. Family shouldn't be transactional. Coming from the woman who had Venmo requested me for shared brunch groceries after I had already paid her electric bill, I replied only once, I agree. Family shouldn't be transactional. That's why I'm done paying for access to people who don't love my children properly. She left me on read for 3 hours. Then she responded with a thumbs down emoji. Around noon, my Aunt Carol called, not my mother's sister, my dad's younger sister. The one everyone called difficult because she had an unfortunate habit of saying true things before dessert. I answered. Well, she said. Looks like somebody finally struck a match. I rubbed my forehead and laughed despite myself. How much have you heard? Enough. Your mother called me crying about the airport. Of course, she left out the part about your children being excluded. I had to hear that from Bate. Bate was my cousin, around Lisa's age. She was nice in the quiet, unshowy way that actually mattered. What did Mom say? That you had a breakdown. My favorite detail was that your divorce made you bitter. Creative, Carol snorted. I called because I want you to know you're not wrong. That made me quiet. She must have noticed. You still there? Yeah, you should have done it years ago, she said. And for what it's worth, everyone knows how they've treated that boy. I sat down at the prep table. Everyone. Hannah, come on, we all see it. Some of us just haven't been brave enough to say it out loud. I closed my eyes. All those years I had convinced myself that maybe I was imagining the pattern. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe blended families naturally came with awkward moments. No, people had seen it. They had simply preferred being comfortable. Carol continued. Your cousin Bate said that if you still go to Orlando with the kids, she can get you discounted aquarium tickets through work. I smiled. Tell her thank you. I will, and Hannah, yeah, don't cave just because they're loud. Loud doesn't mean right. After we hung up, I stood in the middle of my kitchen for a moment, one hand resting against the cool stainless steel counter, and let myself feel it. Not rage, not triumph. Relief, a hard, exhausted, almost painful kind of relief, because once you stop pretending you're confused, everything becomes simpler. My children weren't confused, they were hurt. My family wasn't confused either, they were entitled, and I wasn't conflicted anymore. By Sunday afternoon, my mother had started sending emissaries. First, my pastor's wife texted me in that overly casual way, asking if everything was okay with the trip situation. I didn't respond. Then Lisa sent a voice memo, crying about how Ella had packed her mouse ears and now felt like she was being punished because of the adults. Then my father left a voicemail so controlled that it was almost funny. Hannah, call me back. This financial drama has gone far enough. Financial drama. As if the drama was money disappearing instead of children being told they didn't belong. On Monday morning, I put an auto-reply on my restaurant email for supplier invoices, printed payroll, delegated Friday's catering order to my sous chef, and left town with Emily and Noah before sunrise. Not because I was running, because we had our flight, 3 seats together, window side. At the airport, Noah bounced on his toes through security with the kind of excitement only children and very rested people seem to have. Emily tried to act calmer than she felt, but she kept checking the departure board every 2 minutes. When we finally sat down at the gate, she leaned against me. Do you think they really came here? Like all of them, they did, and they got told there was no reservation. Yes, Noah grinned into his hot chocolate. That's kind of legendary. I gave him a look. He shrugged. I'm just saying, then his expression softened. Mom, yeah, thanks for not making us go anyway. That went straight into my chest. I looked at him, really looked at him. His backpack with the dinosaur keychain, his 2 long bangs, the tiny scar near his eyebrow from the 2nd grade scooter disaster. The child who had spent years being polite in rooms where love was rationed. You never have to earn your place with me, I said. He nodded once. I know, I hoped he did. In Orlando, the trip became something completely different. It wasn't the big, loud family fantasy I had paid for out of habit. It was better. We slept late that first morning. On the second night, we had waffles for dinner. One entire afternoon was spent at the dinosaur exhibit because Noah wanted to read every single plaque twice. Emily and I went on a terrifying coaster that she almost backed out of, and afterward we laughed so hard that she actually cried. Nobody argued about how fast we pushed the stroller, complained about budget souvenirs, or fought over whose kid got to choose the itinerary first. Nobody told Noah how lucky he was to be included. Nobody told Emily that she needed to let the boys decide. At breakfast on the 3rd morning, Emily looked around the hotel restaurant and quietly said, I didn't know trips could be this peaceful. That hurt in its own way. But I was also glad she finally understood what peace felt like. On our last evening, we were back in the room with tired feet and damp swimsuits hanging in the bathroom. I checked my phone for the first time in hours. 32 messages, 9 voicemails. And a long email from my mother. I opened the email because I wanted to know if there was even one sentence mentioning my children. There wasn't. There was pain, confusion, history. After all we've done for you, family is forever, money has changed you, your brother had to borrow money at a terrible interest rate because you embarrassed him. There was even. Your father's blood pressure has been affected, but there wasn't a single line that said, we were wrong about Noah. We heard Emily too, we're sorry. I closed the email, deleted it, and went back to helping Noah organize his pressed pennies by park. When we returned home, the consequences settled in like dust after moving furniture. It wasn't dramatic every second, but somehow it was everywhere. The family group chat went silent, except for the occasional passive-aggressive holiday photo posted without any explanation. Derek sent 2 requests for money over the next month. One was for baseball registration, the other was simply asking for a bridge until payday. I declined both without saying a word. Lisa called twice, crying about a late rent fee. Instead of giving her my card number, I gave her the contact information for a local assistance fund. My father mailed back the extra house key I'd given them years earlier. It came in an envelope with no note. That one almost made me smile. He thought he was punishing me. It was housekeeping. The loudest part lasted about 3 weeks. There were phone calls, accusations that I was keeping the children away from their grandparents, and suggestions from several relatives that I was allowing old hurts to affect my judgment. Then came the phrase, be the bigger person. That phrase always seems to mean one thing, go back to being the softer target. I used the same sentence every single time. I won't fund a family my kids aren't fully part of. I never argued beyond that. I never gave extra explanations, and I never took the bait when someone called me unforgiving. Boundaries sound harsh to people who benefited from you having none. In early summer, Anne, Carol, and our cousin Bate came to Baker's table for Sunday lunch. Emily was working as a hostess that day to earn some extra money for art camp, while Noah sat at the back table doing his math homework with a brownie nearly the size of his face. Carol watched him for a moment before quietly saying, he looks lighter. He is, she looked at me. You do too. I glanced around the restaurant, the chalkboard menu, the pie case. The worn wooden floors. I'd refinished myself one January when business was slow, and I was too stubborn to pay someone else to do it. The little bell above the door still annoyed me and charmed customers in equal measure. I'd built this place one invoice, one overnight dough rise, and one impossible week at a time. I knew how to protect the things that mattered. Bates stirred her tea. Your mom called me again. I raised one eyebrow. She wanted me to convince you to host the 4th of July because everyone misses the old traditions. I actually laughed. The old tradition where I cook for 23 people and pay for the fireworks while my son gets introduced without a last name. Carol nearly choked on her tea. Bates smiled into her cup. I told her I was busy. Bless you, Carol said. Then she reached across the table and squeezed my hand once. You did the right thing. By then, hearing that mattered less than it once had. But it still mattered. Later that week, something small happened that told me more than all the family drama ever could. Noah came home from school carrying a poster board. It was for a family heritage project. Photos, names, traditions, favorite recipes. He placed it on the kitchen table and suddenly went quiet. I waited. Then he asked, do I have to put them on it? I knew exactly who he meant. I took a breath. You have to tell the truth about your family. That can include anyone who has loved you well. Emily was nearby painting her nails. She looked up and said, then put Mom, me, Aunt Carol, and Carlos from the restaurant. He taught you dominoes, Noah laughed. Then he started working. He put up a photo of me wearing my flower-covered apron. He added a picture of Emily holding the giant ribbon she'd won at the county art fair. Then he included a photo of himself wearing a paper chef hat from the restaurant's summer kids camp. He added Aunt Carol because, as he explained, she brings weird olives and says honest things. Under family tradition, he wrote, Sunday pasta after close. Everybody gets a vote on dessert. No grandparents, no apology placeholders, no forced branches, just the truth. I stood at the sink pretending to rinse strawberries while blinking hard enough not to cry into the colander. By August, my mother had moved from outrage to injury. She wrote me an actual letter on her good cream stationery, the kind with tiny blue flowers in the corner. She said she didn't understand why I was holding on to resentment when life was short. She mentioned church, she talked about forgiveness. She brought up my grandmother's belief in keeping the family united. Still, she never mentioned my children specifically. I wrote back on plain notebook paper, "Mom, I'm not holding resentment, I'm holding a boundary. You are off my accounts, you are off my travel plans, you are off my emergency list. If you ever want a relationship with me or my children, it starts with a direct apology to them and changed behavior over time, not words to me about family." That was it, no flourish. No long speech. I had learned something by then. People who depend on your confusion hate your clarity. In October, Emily had her first real gallery style showing through the youth arts program downtown. 6 of her pieces were displayed in a bright white room with folding tables covered in crackers and grocery store grapes. She wore a black dress from the thrift shop and silver hoops she'd borrowed from me. She looked nervous and radiant. Noah stood beside her, introducing himself as her manager and charging imaginary millions to anyone who stood in front of her artwork for too long. Aunt Carol came, Bate came. Carlos came with his wife and brought flowers wrapped in butcher paper. Even my ex-husband sent a message for once. My parents did not come, even though they'd heard about the event through 3 different people. At first it hurt, but after a while it didn't anymore. Emily ended up selling one small watercolor of the Blue Ridge at sunset to a retired teacher with the kindest eyes. When the woman handed her the envelope, Emily looked at me as if someone had just opened a door to a whole new world. On the drive home, she said, "I'm actually glad I didn't spend tonight worrying about whether Grandma was going to say something strange." I glanced at her when we stopped at a red light. The glow of passing brake lights lighting up her face. "Me too," she rested her head against the seat. "It's quieter now. Yes, I like it. So do I. If there was a symbolic ending to everything, it came at Christmas. Not the dramatic kind with speeches, fireworks, and perfect closure. Real life rarely gives you endings like that. Instead, it happened quietly in my dining room, in a house that still smelled faintly of cinnamon from the morning buns I'd baked before sunrise. I hosted Christmas dinner for the people who had shown up for us the right way: Aunt Carol, Bate, Carlos, and his wife. 2 of Emily's friends from art camp came because their parents were working hospital shifts. Noah's best friend Malik came with his dad, who brought a sweet potato pie and stayed afterward to help wash the dishes without anyone asking him. I set the table with mismatched plates and cloth napkins from the restaurant. I had plenty of them and they looked beautiful in the candlelight. Emily made the place cards in her neat, careful handwriting. Noah arranged pine branches down the middle of the table and insisted on using one ridiculous plastic dinosaur wearing a Santa hat as the centerpiece. Near the far end of the table, almost without realizing it, I left 2 chairs empty, not to make a statement, not to punish anyone, they were simply there. They represented spaces that once would have automatically been reserved for people who assumed they belonged, spaces I no longer felt obligated to fill. 3 days earlier, my mother had called and asked in a strained voice whether we were doing anything for Christmas dinner. I told her yes. She waited. I waited too. Finally, she asked, "Are we invited?" There was so much history packed into those 4 words, so much expectation, as if doors were supposed to stay open simply because they had always been open. I answered carefully, "Not this year." There was silence. Then she said, "I see." "No," I said softly, "I don't think you do yet." We ended the call there. Now, on Christmas evening, with the table full, the windows dark, and the restaurant closed for 2 entire days, I stood in the kitchen doorway and watched Emily laughing so hard she had to put her glass down. Noah was showing Malik how to roll a dinner napkin across the table without Aunt Carol catching him. Carlos pretended he wasn't watching, then immediately proved that he absolutely was. Candles flickered against the dark window glass, warm food covered the table, everyone was relaxed, nobody was treating one child differently from another. Nobody was making anyone feel like they were less important, nobody had to earn their place at the table. At one point, Noah jumped up and ran into the living room. A moment later, he came back holding a folded piece of paper. "I made something," he said, handing it to me. I opened it. It was a drawing, our house, slightly crooked, the restaurant sign. Me wearing my apron, Emily holding a paintbrush, Noah carrying a tray of cookies that looked almost bigger than he was. Above all of us in big block letters he had written, "The Bakers," nothing else, no explanation, no apology to anyone's bloodline, no footnote, just us. I ran my thumb gently over the corner of the paper and looked at him. "It's perfect." He shrugged, suddenly shy. "You can put it in your office at the restaurant. I'm framing it." He smiled and went back to the table. I did frame it. It still hangs beside the bakery register. And whenever someone asks me about it, I simply say, that's my family, because it is. What I learned from everything that happened wasn't glamorous. It wasn't that revenge feels good. Honestly, it doesn't, not really. What felt good was protecting my children. What felt good was finally refusing to participate in their humiliation. What felt good was realizing that money had been the leash everyone expected me to keep wearing, and the moment I unclipped it, everyone finally showed me who they really were. My brother showed his entitlement, my parents showed their preference disguised as tradition, my sister showed that her own comfort mattered more to her than fairness. And my children showed more grace than any of them had earned. The financial boundary didn't repair my family, it revealed it, and in a strange way it revealed me too. Not the daughter still waiting to be chosen, not the sister constantly trying to smooth things over, not the woman who kept paying for access to a table where her children were barely welcome. Just me, Hannah Baker, restaurant owner, mother, provider, yes, but not endlessly, kind but no longer willing to be taken advantage of, tired but finally no longer confused. Sometimes people ask me if I regret canceling those tickets. I don't. I regret buying them in the first place. I regret every time my children had to look around a room and wonder whether they truly belonged there. I regret every dollar I spent trying to buy basic decency from people who treated it like something optional, but I don't regret that phone call. I don't regret how quietly I spoke. I don't regret watching those confirmation emails arrive one after another in my inbox, as the old arrangement ended just as quietly as it had existed. And I will never regret the life that came afterward, a smaller table, fewer people, honest chairs. It turned out that was enough. Actually, it was more than enough. It turned out to be home.
But honestly, I do not think it should have ended this way. What do you think Anna should have done? Was she right to cancel the trip and cut off the financial support, or did she take things too far? Share your opinion in the comments. I'd really love to hear what you would have done in her place. And if you enjoy the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notification bell for more emotional family drama, Reddit story, and real life inspired stories. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in next story. Thank you.